And I did. There we go. All right, now we're starting. So thank you all for joining for this outreach training. The goals for today are just to help you all feel confident about representing ANV at whatever kind of outreach event you end up liking to do. We want to be sure that all volunteers have a pretty good baseline knowledge of ANV's both membership and volunteer strategies and programs. And for those of you who are volunteers and not members, you may be especially interested in the member side of the house, which we'll review today. And then we want to provide some ideas for proactive outreach and engagement. I am going to facilitate. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock and move people along if needed. As I noted, the session is being recorded, and I know a bunch of folks are going to be watching this recording, so it's a great option to have. And for our presentation today, Mary Ellis is going to be leading the majority of the content. Wendy is going to be doing an intro. And then we've got two experienced volunteers, Sandy Brucker and Rebecca Mastry, who are going to be sharing some best practices and tips from their perspective. So we will leave time for questions and conversation for at least the last, hoping third to a quarter of our hour together. But that's the plan for today. So thank you all for joining. And Wendy, I will hand it over to you.
Hi, thanks, Cindy. I'm Wendy Zenker, the Executive Director of Arlington Neighborhood Village. What's most important to let you all know is that, we need to get the word out about Arlington Neighborhood Village. We invariably meet people who always say, I didn't know you existed. I didn't know that there was a village here in Arlington, or I don't know what a village is. So what we want to be able to do is hope that our members and volunteers are able to talk about ANV. And so part of that is talking about ANV just in conversation and passing. The other is the opportunity to talk about ANV in special outreach events that we do. And those outreach events can be in lots of different opportunities. As you see on the slide in front of you, villages started 25 years ago in Boston, Massachusetts, up on Beacon Hill. And today we know that there are more than 300 villages across the nation, and there are 70 here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia region. Matter of fact, in our own backyard, we've got At Home in Alexandria, Mount Vernon at Home, Lake Barcroft, and a couple of villages that are starting up in Fairfax County. If you're looking for villages elsewhere, you can go to the National Village to Village Network, and you'll see the website there, vtvnetwork.org. But what we mostly want to talk about is Arlington Neighborhood Village. And we were founded 12 years ago by a group of neighbors, and those neighbors are sitting there in front of you. Barbara and Pete Oliveri are two of our founders. They sat around a kitchen table and they saw that their neighbors needed help, and they wanted to know, how could I provide that help? And they looked and did research, and what they found was the village model. What started in 2014 is now 500 plus members today from all over Arlington County. We've built strategic partnerships across Arlington with affordable housing, with Arlington Food Assistance Center, with Culpeper Garden in the Carlin, with the library, with the Department of Parks and Rec, with housing, with the Arlington Agency on Aging. Our partnerships are wide and deep. And overall, we've expanded from basic services to very comprehensive support for older adults. What we do is we offer that extra help that an older adult needs to be able to stay in their home and community. We've got 320 volunteers that are delivering services like rides to medical appointment, errands, food bank deliveries to an economically and culturally diverse membership. I think those of you who are listening in on this call know that. You're either a volunteer providing these services or you're a member who's getting these services. But what we want to really talk to you about today is, the opportunities we have for outreach, for everyone to sort of spread the word about what Arlington Neighborhood Village is. I'm going to stop sort of paying attention to the slides for a minute just so I can give you my perspective, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ellis. But we really see that there are lots of opportunities for outreach. Um, there are your civic association meetings. That's a meeting in person, or potentially it's getting an article into your civic association newsletter. For those of you who live in apartment buildings, same opportunity. There's a bulletin board, there may be a newsletter, or you might even be able to set up a table in the lobby on a Saturday morning and sort of capture people in that critical 2 hour window between 9 and 11 when they're going out to do their errands. We had a volunteer who did that in one of the buildings in Virginia Square. You have an opportunity at your faith institutions to spread the word about Arlington Neighborhood Village. We're happy to ourselves or our volunteers go in and do a presentation at any of these events, at a civic association, in an apartment building, at an HOA, at a faith institution. Matter of fact, one of the biggest opportunities we have is coming up a little later this month, and that's the Arlington County Fair on August 14th, 15th, and 16th. And Mary Ellis is going to be talking a little bit more about that. In addition to these opportunities to do outreach, we also have tools that can help you do that outreach. We have print materials, we have car magnets that you can put on your door, we have lawn signs, we've got t-shirts you can wear. I have 2 car magnets on my car, and I can't tell you the number of times that someone has looked at those magnets and said, "What's that?" And we end up having a brief conversation, and I hope get people to learn more about us. I've had people see my yard sign and have followed the web address to come find out about us. Obviously, I have something stuck in my throat. I'm sorry. Um, but there are lots of opportunities, and I think this is, because I can't talk anymore, a great opportunity for me to turn this over to Mary Ellis.
Good timing. Yes, thank you for that overview. So, of course, a typical question you'll get at an outreach event is, as Wendy said, who are you and what do you do? So I think this is probably just review for most of you listening in, but we'll go over it anyway. So there are 2 elements to membership. So there's the direct services, the practical help, rides, errands, changing the light bulbs, visiting folks in their home to provide tech support. And then, of course, there's a social element as well. So we have daily check-in calls. Some of you may be visitors or walking companions to members yourself, or meet with a volunteer regularly to go on those walks or have those visits. And then, of course, we have our group activities as well. So we have a busy calendar. There's almost always something going on, both on a regular recurring basis. And then we have our special events as well. So our summer picnic, our holiday get-togethers. There's almost always something going on. So who are we serving? So as Wendy mentioned, we have about 500 members. Our sort of typical member is a female over 80 who's living alone. Of course, that's just based on these statistics here. We do have a diverse membership. And of course, we can't capture all of it in just these statistics. You can see that almost half of our membership participates in our discounted membership program. I'll get into the details on that later when we're talking about membership. And about a third of them are experiencing some sort of mobility, eyesight, or hearing challenge. So how are we doing all this? We have a small paid staff. So Wendy and myself, Cindy, we have our operations specialist, our chief development officer. We do have a budget that includes membership fees, grants, donations as our main source of funding, because even though we are a volunteer organization, we do have expenses. So that question may come up. People may ask, if it's all volunteers, why is there a membership fee? And the answer is because we do have an office and we have to operate. So I'll hand it over to Cindy for the next couple of slides about volunteering.
So Of course, ANV runs because of you all who are volunteers, and this is some of the statistical information from last year. So you can see here the number of active volunteers, the number of round trip rides that were provided, and so volunteers drove almost 52,000 miles at their own expense last year. The number of hours that are donated includes both direct service and indirect service. So all of our volunteers who are helping out with social events count their time as well. And we were able to fill about 94% of the requests that members made last year. In terms of who can volunteer with us, everyone over the age of 18 is welcome. You need to be 21 to serve as a driver. You all, I think, know some of the rewards of volunteering that are listed here. I'll say in terms of outreach, one of the things we really focus on is how flexible it is to volunteer with ANV. Sometimes, other organizations may ask for volunteers to commit to a weekly schedule or have a certain number of opportunities filled in the course of a month or a week or whatever. But we know that a lot of volunteers for ANV really appreciate the opportunity to do it on their own schedule. They get to pick and choose what they want to do. Okay. In terms of the clearance process, you all probably remember this from your own application process, but you complete the volunteer application that's on the website. Once we get that form in hand, not in hand, it's electronic, but then we offer a Zoom orientation session about every 2 weeks for prospective volunteers to attend. It's really important that they attend that session because we want to be sure that they're very clear about what volunteering with ANV is all about. Once that is complete, prospective volunteers assign our volunteer agreement and their driver form if they're going to be serving as a driver, and then they have a background check conducted by Sterling volunteers. That includes a driving record check if they're going to be serving as a driver for us. And that whole process can be done in just a couple of days if everybody does what they're supposed to do promptly. So it may be multi-step, but doesn't necessarily take a long time. All right, Mary Ellis.
So, of course, in addition to questions about volunteering, you'll be fielding questions about membership. So, any Arlington County resident over age 55 who's looking for that little bit of extra support, who needs a ride, who would like to get out and meet new people, is welcome to apply. We talked already, of course, about the reasons to join. There are many good ones. So, direct services and then the social activities as well. You may talk to folks who don't necessarily need a lot of direct help right now. Maybe they drive, maybe they are largely independent, but they're looking to meet new people or to just join a community. I also encourage folks to consider joining well before they actually need it, because it's kind of a nice insurance option. Maybe you drive, you don't need help getting to appointments, you can pick up your own groceries. But if something were to happen where maybe there was a period of time where you couldn't do that or you needed to call on us, it's certainly helpful to already have it in place. And one reason for that is because we have a membership application process, and it can take, sort of depends, to Cindy's point, on everybody doing what they're supposed to, but it can take up to 2 weeks typically, from that initial contact with the person who's interested to their paperwork and everything being processed. So the process includes paperwork, an in-home visit, and then payment of the annual membership fee. The easiest thing to tell folks if they would like to join is to just call our office. So they'll call and say that they want to join. They'll speak with me and we'll talk about their individual situation, their individual needs, make sure that it's a good fit on both sides, and then move forward with the application paperwork. Another way that they can initiate that process is to fill out our interest form online. So the interest form is not our application, but it does prompt the process. So it initiates a call from me. And once I have that form, then I reach out and we get the process started. So the annual membership fee, the standard fee for one person is $500 per year, but we do have a financial aid fund that allows us to offer reduced fees for applicants whose income is below 69,000. Of course, at a tabling event, you are not expected at all to remember all these details or remember our fee structure. We do have a handout, the one here on the screen, that has a breakdown of that information. So the short answer, if someone asks, how much does it cost to join, is to say, well, the standard fee is for one person is $500 per year, but it does depend on your income, and then hand them this piece of paper. So these are a few pictures from previous years of our table setup. So as you can see, it depends a little bit on our booth location. Looks a little bit different each year. We have some wonderful banners that Wendy has procured. And so this gives you just a sense of what the table might look like. For smaller events, so the county fair, of course, is a big one. For smaller events that are held at, community centers or in senior residences around Arlington, it'll be obviously a lot smaller. We usually just have one of the stand-up banners in addition to our table setup. So we will make available a very long list of FAQs that has some more detailed information. We'll post it on the website after this training and also make it available at the table if you're working at an outreach event. But these three questions, what do you do? How do I join as a member to receive services? And how do I volunteer? Probably capture it best. So if you can answer those three questions, you'll be in good shape. And then for any kind of more detailed questions or things you're not sure about, just let people know that they can call us or check out the website. So don't hesitate to refer people. Our email address and contact information is all over our materials, and we will have a QR code as well on the tabletop. So people can scan it right there to access our website. So these are some handouts that we'll have available. These three are the best for kind of just general information. The one in the middle is really the most comprehensive if you're looking to capture both membership and volunteering and donation information. So if you just need to get something in someone's hand, the one in the middle is the best. The brochure, of course, also captures a lot of information, but not in quite as much detail. And then for folks who you think might be good potential volunteers, we do have two things that are specific to them. We call it our Light Up Someone's Life flyer, and it has information about how to apply, what to expect, a lot of the information that Cindy went over already. And then on the left here is it's not really a brochure, but a little card that also has helpful information. And last but not least, we have swag. So people love to come and collect pens and emery boards. Jar openers are also very popular. Some people think that they're mini mouse pads. You can let them know they can use it for whatever they want. We also have Post-it notes, and then we'll have some candy and snacks available, which of course are popular with the kids that come by. What I like to do is give them a brochure and tell them to give it to the grown-up that they came with in exchange for a piece of candy. All right. And so now I think we'll pass it over to, is it Rebecca or Sandy going first?
I think Sandy's going to go first.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing my screen here. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Okay, I guess I just have a few thoughts about it. The first thing is I found it to be very enjoyable. It's very fun to meet your fellow Arlington neighbors, and you'll find a lot of people are looking for someone else, not necessarily for them. They might say, "Oh, I'm not ready yet," or "I don't need it," but you might find them have a neighbor or a family member or something like that. So it's important if they say, "Oh, it's not my thing." You might say, "Well, keep it in mind," or take a brochure if you have a neighbor that might need some help, or it's just a chance to get people to be familiar with us. I've found a lot of Mary Alice and I've done either one or two events where it was maybe a year or two ago, and we didn't have a lot of opportunity for younger or working people because all of our rides and everything were during the week, or a lot of our services were really mainly week focused. Well, we're doing, I I think you guys send out, I don't know if it's just on the Fridays or later in the week, but we now have a lot of weekend opportunities. So that's an important thing to remember too, because we'd always have young folks stop by and go, "Oh, I work during the week," and we say, "Well, not to worry. We have weekend opportunities now." Or I don't know how many of our members are interested in an evening visitor, but maybe the more volunteers that we have that are available at different times, I think that's helpful. So it's sort of like anyone that shows up at your table, there may be some interest in some way, either for themselves or for a neighbor. Let me think what else. I think it's really important to spend a few minutes. I think Mary Alice showed us the perfect couple of brochures just to know which ones are the most handy. And it's that big one that talks about the volunteer and the membership information. So that's kind of your key thing. And again, don't be hesitant if you don't know something. It's easy to just say, how would here's the number for the office, or we can call you, we can text you, whatever makes you more comfortable. The other thing that I remember thinking, a lot of people say, well, my daughter takes me or my son can take me. And I used to do some of the in-home orientations. And I remember saying, save your daughter or your son or your niece or your nephew for the fun stuff. Let ANV be your wheels to get to the doctor's office or some of that, because we all know what it's like living in Arlington. And if you're trying to take off work to run somebody to the doctor's and that appointment runs late or the traffic is heavy. So I remember that being an important thing too. If they say, oh, my family can help me now, just say, well, keep us in mind, because sometimes it's hard on your family when you could save that for dinner out or something that's not a family. It's an alternative to those that say, well, I have family in the area, which is great, but not for everybody all the time. So that's an important thing that I think we've learned. Let me think what else. I don't think I have a lot of else or a lot of other notes, other than I think it's a really fun experience to, whether they're looking to become a member or a volunteer. And I remember when I first got involved and I met somebody at a swim class that talked to me about it, is the flexibility. And that's what Cindy talked about. A lot of people retire and say the last thing I want right now in my life is a commitment. And so the easiest sell to me for this is to walk people through how it really works to be a volunteer. You become a volunteer, but then, on a daily basis, you can say, I have time or I don't have time. You don't have to commit weeks and months or anything in advance. You just sort of become a member of the community, and on a given day, you say, oh, I've got some time. Let me help. So I think that's the other important thing when you're talking about volunteers, is it's so, or people are thinking about, am I interested in volunteering? It's just the easiest and most rewarding flexibility, or easy, very, very easy, very, very flexible, but you still get the ultimate reward of helping our neighbors. And the other thing that I absolutely love about it, which I always tell people, is you get to meet people in our community that there's no other chance you're likely to meet. And that to me is probably one of the most rewarding things. And as you see on our statistics, so many of our community, as you guys know, because most of you probably already volunteer, is they're alone. So the chance that we get to spend an hour or two with them and help their family is something I'm always telling prospective volunteers that's so rewarding, because I'm sure you've all had it, where you have a member get in the car and their son or daughter from Seattle or Dayton, Ohio, or someone's worried about them, and we're there taking care of their family member. And I always tell people that's probably the most rewarding thing for family members that are out of the area. So I think it's easy as a volunteer to talk about the absolute wonderful parts of being the volunteer. And then as you've met the members, you kind of know what the benefits to the members are. So I think just kind of talk from your experience and your heart, and feel, you're only involved in this because you really love it. And so it's really, really easy to talk about. You'll find as people walk up to the desk that it's an easy thing. In fact, I think at the fair, you'll have more people than you can even keep up with sometimes. So you just kind of, if somebody goes by and they look, but they don't have a chance, you kind of sneak to their hand a brochure or that piece of paper and say, swing back by, or here's a little bit of information. The fair is a great place to get a lot of people. So I think that's all I had.
All right, thanks, Sandy.
Yeah.
Rebecca, what would you add to those tips and ideas? You've done some outreach yourself.
I have. Thank you for this opportunity. h- um, Everyone so far has covered an awful lot of relevant information to what we're doing in terms of outreach. One thing I'm going to try to avoid repeating myself, but there are a couple of things that merit repeating because they are very, very important. But one thing I try and do is when I'm speaking with groups, is do what you can to know your audience. An example I'd like to provide is on a couple of occasions, I have volunteered at the Foreign Service Institute, where these are U.S. Foreign Service officers who are about to retire. And to Sandy's point, as you begin talking to them, because they'll say, "What's ANV? What, and this is the volunteer day that the Foreign Service Institute has, the volunteer experience. So it's a rich, already federal employees, for example, have a DNA to give, or they probably wouldn't have been in federal service, but anyway, it's talking about opportunities. It's talking about, for many of them, it's to Sandy's point, it's not just about their needs, but typically they're asking about a parent. They're coming back to family in the United States, and people, an aunt and uncle maybe who live in the area, but pointing out, and for many Foreign Service officers, they live throughout the country. Then I refer them to the village to village network. But it's about asking questions and taking an interest in them and what they're interested in doing. Yes, the volunteer experience is a very, very rewarding one. And my experience is it's vastly exceeded my expectations. The flexibility of working with ANV is a big sell. I reinforce the strength, the compassion of the staff, the volunteers, and that it's such a very, very strong community. In a way, it's a large extended family, I find, and people that resonates with people. I think. With respect to volunteering too, I tell them too, it's not limited. There are a vast number of opportunities to volunteer. For one thing, I might say, because just if you want to do a little more, there are 8 committees, standing committees, that are always looking for qualified people to provide input, thoughts, suggestions, and so forth. But that's about it. But like I said, the flexibility thing, I think Sandy hit it on the head. A couple of you guys hit it. And with me, it was a very, very big deal. When I retired, I'd much rather a volunteer opportunity that was rewarding, giving back in a way, and not to suggest it's on my terms, but that I have the flexibility because people have other lives too. It's not terribly, terribly structured, and that seems to be a big selling point with people.
Agreed. A couple things I would mention is that it's really important at outreach events and especially at the fair to be proactive. So to not just kind of park yourself behind the table and wait for people to come up and you certainly don't want to be scrolling on your phone the whole time. It's good to have a couple of little hooks that you can say, like, are you familiar with ANV? Or can I answer any questions about ANV? Or I don't know, Wendy, Mary Ellis, I'm sure you guys have your own little hooks that you use. I know, Wendy, you say, like, if you're looking at me, what is it about your eye contact?
Yeah, if you made the mistake of making eye contact, you have to talk to me. When somebody's walking by, if you get eye contact, they've got to get reeled in for a conversation. But it is, that is what outreach is. It's outreach. Don't wait for people to come to you. You've got to go to them. Sometimes at the fair, we put a chair on the other side of the table. So people who've been walking around feel the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with us. And certainly when we're doing health fairs and housing fairs and Hispanic fairs and library outreach fairs. It's a matter of being, in a sense, aggressive and forcing yourself on somebody. They have the ability to walk away. They're not going to get glued to your table. But you do want to make every effort to sort of grab their attention.
Um, I think in general, we've all talked about the importance of driving people to the website for follow-up and certainly for both the volunteer application and the member interest form. So that's a great thing to reinforce. And then one little small detail is that for folks who are interested in receiving follow-up information, contact from the office or from me in terms of volunteering, there is I don't know what we call it, a contact sheet or a sign-up sheet where they can just leave their name and email address, and then whether their interest is primarily in membership or volunteering, or perhaps both. I think the last time we were looking at statistics, how many folks were both members and volunteers? I think around 50.
60 or so, yes.
Yeah. So certainly that's an option as well. Um, is there anything else that any of the presenters wanted to mention before we move ahead to, I don't know, do you have another slide, Mary Alice, or should we go ahead and just open it up for questions and other experiences? Because some of you folks have also been doing outreach in the past and might have some good tips to share.
Yeah, there's just one more slide, which is reminding everybody to wear your name badge and your t-shirt. And if you don't have either of those things, let us know. We can hook you up.
And you don't have to wear the t-shirt. Some people don't love the way t-shirts look on them, but it is a very good branding opportunity, and you're welcome to pick up a t-shirt in the office, or we can get it to you. So, all right, so let's open this up for conversation now. Is there anyone who has any questions about what was presented or any tips that they would like to share about their own experience serving as an ambassador for ANV?
I have a question about the county fair, about volunteering for that. Is, by any chance, is there a parking space that you have in mind? I mean, do we have to, park far away or
Yeah, Susan, what has happened in the past, and I can only talk about the past because everything gets done by the county fair sort of like the day of. But in the past, they do make one parking pass available to every vendor at the fair, and that's for parking in what's called the Fleet Street Garage. It's the elementary school garage that's connected to Thomas Jefferson. What we do is we do make copies of that parking pass, and we get it out to the volunteers that are working our booth. And the expectation is that you'll use that parking pass only during the 2-hour shift that you're actually working the fair. So it's not as if, you'll be there and you're going to park for the next 3 days. If you're working your shift at the fair, you're able to park in the Fleet Street Garage with this parking pass, but not overextend your use of the parking pass. There are also people who Uber to the fair, and there are shuttle buses that go to the fair from different locations. So there are a couple of different ways to get there, but a shared parking pass is one opportunity we expect will happen again this year as it has in the past.
so does it matter if there's one parking pass, but there's two volunteers for each time?
Don't you shouldn't have to worry about it.
Okay, thanks.
We're skirting the rules a little bit, but we do make one available to each volunteer who's going to be at the fair. And I will be, or Wendy will be, reaching out to everybody who signed up for the fair with more details about the logistics once we get a little bit closer, because we don't have some of the information from the county quite yet.
Wendy and Cindy, this is
Yeah,
Terry.
sure.
Hey, just to let you know, I live right on First Place. It's the first road right before you can cross over the pedestrian bridge.
Mhm.
They've closed it off to having parking permits for the last couple years, down Jackson. So I have an extra parking permit if somebody wants to park in front of my house. and volunteer. So that would be like an extra, but you'd have to leave it like in my mailbox or something like
Right.
that, if that would help out with any of the logistics for the people getting back and forth.
Right. Terry, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. We should, for the most part, be able to work the scheme that we've worked in
Okay,
the past. And it may mean that people have, shifts. People may want to stop by the office on Friday afternoon. We don't get the parking pass until Friday morning.
right.
That's what makes the whole copying it and getting it into people's hands a little bit more of a game. But that's all part of what the joy of the county fair. We've got games that we get to play.
Oh, I know. We don't get our little parking permits until Friday, the same as you.
Right, right, right.
All right. So, Caroline, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wondered with the new weekend opportunities for volunteering, is that kind of a sprinkling of different types of volunteering opportunities, or are they concentrated into a few specific types? Are they mostly transportation, for instance, versus walking buddies or something like that?
Mary,
Um,
you want to take that?
yeah, Mary Alice.
Yeah, so the weekend opportunities, they're not really, we've always had them in the sense that a lot of requests are daytime flexible, like for walking buddies or visits or errands. You know, we encourage and welcome members to include weekends in their availability because volunteers are sometimes available on those days. In terms of specific rides or other needs that come up on the weekends, it's church rides, of course. And then on occasion, there are medical and dental offices that are open, and sometimes a member will have an appointment on a Saturday. So lately, even though we've always accepted those requests and put them out there, lately we've been trying to draw special attention to them by sending them out as their own list in hopes of alerting volunteers to the fact that they can do that and that there is this need. So, did that answer your question?
That's great. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I think that, I was going to add, I think that's really helpful to send them out in a separate one because it sort of piques your interest on whatever day it is and say, wow, I haven't had time during the week, but maybe on the weekend I can do the ride. So I don't know what your feedback has been, but as a volunteer, I do like seeing those separated. I don't know why, but it just seems to be helpful to pay attention to it.
Right.
Everything we can do. Okay, Emily, what's your question?
It's not a question per se. I just want to share that last year when I did the volunteer for the county fair, and I used, oh, I don't think you can see it.
Yeah, we can see
Or
it.
whatever. It's called the Membership Services and Benefit memorandum that you guys sent out. It was very helpful. So I used it as a script. So when I hook somebody in, like you said, and I started to tell them about the direct services available to the full member. For example, you guys started with the transportation, then you did errands, technology support. So it's very well laid out as a script. So I'm just saying, if you run out of things to say, if you can't think of something, last year, the benefit, I can't see it from it, but I'm sure you know what I mean, was very extremely helpful to me. So I didn't really have any moment of a tongue tie. I can always pick something from this thing this year. And I really like the Arlington Neighborhood Village 2025 Impact Report. Once again, this is another good script because, for example, it starts with 2025 by the numbers, who we serve, and neighborhood neighbors promote what kind of services. This is even more succinct than the one you put out last year. So, and it's a colorful thing that I can just, put it on the table and start showing them what I'm talking about. I'm not going to memorize this, but it's right there. So I'm just suggesting, it just suggests as to whoever wants to come up with a script, you don't have to memorize it. It's right in the 2025 impact report.
Right. And the copies of this will be on the table. Absolutely. Good point, Emily.
Oh, there will be? Oh, perfect. And is there going to be a form? So if somebody said, I'm interested, do we just put them right on the name or do we give them something or what?
We do have them just fill out a sign-up sheet.
Yeah.
The form tries to capture a little too much information
Okay.
in terms of what's really realistic in that kind of a really busy environment. So
Right.
if it's just name, email address, does it include phone number also? I think probably yes.
So it was on
And
a
then,
lot last
yeah,
year. So we just
right.
made them do that. But we don't
And
do
then
like this year, right?
yeah, and then after the fair, we split that up between volunteer and member questions and follow up with folks directly.
And the impact report, didn't Wendy just say it will be there, the 2025
Yes.
impact
Yes.
report? Oh, perfect. Then I think we're all set.
Mhm.
Holly, what is your comment or question?
So I have been volunteering at a nursing home as a nursing home ombudsman in Alexandria. And so some of the residents do live in Arlington and are being discharged. And so I have been doing some informal outreach about ANV at the nursing home. And I actually was wondering if I could come by and pick up some of the brochures, because right now I've just been writing the number on a piece of
Yeah.
paper and giving it to them, but they're more likely to remember it if I can give them something concrete. And so I was wondering if I might be able to do that.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I'll swing by.
Good, perfect. And Holly, either myself, Mary Ellis, Caitlin, any of us can get you the materials that you need. That'd be great.
Okay, terrific.
And we have other people who pick up brochures and take them into their doctor's office. I mean, this is all part of the getting the word out. So if you've got a friendly doctor that you've known for a while and you have a conversation with that person, ask them if they take some, tell them what you do, tell them you're a member or a volunteer, and see if they'll take some brochures and keep them in their office. We have one of our members, one of our board members, does it with her orthopedic. She says, I give him a lot of business. He should hand out these brochures. Everyone who comes to see him needs ANV.
Physical therapists
Yes,
also.
right.
Yeah. Other questions or tips based on your own experience?
Hi, this is Leslie Malone. I actually do have a tip. Wait, let me turn on my camera for you. In regards to parking for the fair. So for many, many years, I've parked near the community center, Columbia Pike Library.
Uh-huh.
I believe off of 9th, I think it's actually 8th Street South. And I've never had any problems parking. You used to park in the actual parking lot, but there's new buildings where the parking lot used to be. But the street right adjacent to it, you can park there and walk. It's about I would say between a 10 to 15-minute walk, depending on how many cups of lemonade you stop to buy from all the kids who are selling along the route. So if you do that, bring some cash, and it's fun to interact with them, and their lemonade is a lot cheaper than what you'll buy at the fair. So
good point.
Very good
Thanks,
point.
thanks, Leslie.
Speaking of the fair, there are open shifts available, particularly in the evenings, and we still need a couple more people to help with setup on Friday morning at 10 a.m. So the link for that, it has gone out a couple of times. I'm also going to be sending out the next edition of the Volunteer Connection on Thursday of this week, asking for just providing more information about the fair and the link there. So if you are interested in volunteering at the fair and haven't yet signed up for a shift, you can go to the Sign Up Genius or just email me and I can help you out with that.
And two comments there. People should know that the staff has not yet signed up for shifts at the fair, mostly because we'll fill the holes that volunteers don't sign up for. It's not that we're not going to the fair, we are, but we just wait and sign up at the very end when there are holes here, there, and everywhere, and we fill those holes. Second, Isabel put a question into the chat, and it was about how best to talk about the fact that there's a membership fee for Journey ANV. Elizabeth, I think there are two ways to talk about that. One is to tell people we do have expenses. We are now 12 years into our existence, about a $500,000 organization. So when you're talking about ANV, yes, we've got 300 volunteers that do all the important work that we do, and we couldn't survive without them. But we also have, 3 staff members that we have to support. We have rental space, we have internet, we have telephone, we have an accountant, we have a financial reviewer, we have insurance costs. When you start adding up all of those expenses, it comes to about $500,000. So when we say that we have a membership fee, that's one of 3 ways that we raise money to pay for those expenses. The membership fee is one way. We seek grants and we ask for donations. So that's one answer. The other answer is that we do have a discounted membership fee. So for those people for whom $500 is too much, we have, and Mary Ellis is happy to talk to people about the discounted fee, and that discounted fee drops it down to $150 or $25 for a person. So that's another way to think about the membership fee and to share information with people. The other piece that oftentimes people talk about is if you really make use of your membership, joining ANV is cheap. If you think about the fact that you can get 3 round-trip rides a week, that's 9 rides in a month. If you were using a taxi or Uber or some other way to get back and forth to your medical appointments, you'd certainly spend more than $40 a month on that. So it is a cost-effective membership if you use it. But those 3 pieces, I think, are one way to talk about the membership fee. And again, know that as an outreach person, you're basically trying to start the conversation. Don't feel that you have to complete the conversation. You can also say to somebody, that's a good question. Let me put you in touch with a staff member who I think can give you more information about that. So know that if you get stuck on something, you can always pass it off to someone else.
Sometimes,
helpful, Isabel.
Yeah, sometimes too, depending on what's going on, is, I'll be talking to people and they'll say, gee, I'm still working. I don't have the time to be a volunteer, but I really, really, really want to help. And I remind them that ANV is a 501c3.
Mm-hmm.
I said, which, this is a tax deduction, especially around tax season or before tax season. Remind them of that. There may be people out there who are, getting hit with RMDs, and remind them too that they're qualified. What is it called? The QCRs.
QCD.
Yeah. There you go.
Qualified charitable deduction.
Yeah. And it's in people that resonates with some people. Again, know your audience, and you can kind of gauge their comfort zone talking about money, basically. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wendy, let me just ask one question. Wendy, is it true that the membership fee funds about 25% of ANV's operating budget? Is that the right ish?
Yeah, it's between 25 and 40%, but we certainly bring in more money. We bring in about an equal amount in grants and an equal amount in donations.
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple other things to the membership fee. I would mention, we also I like to mention that there's social activities. It includes picnics, tech support, a lot of things that can cost significant money. And the other advantage over a cab or an Uber is we're there for you on both ends.
Right.
And because a lot of people, and I said a lot of times, you might have no need for it. And then all of a sudden, you have a treatment that requires you to go 3 days a week for 4 weeks or whatever it is. And that's when Ubers can become very expensive. To your point, Wendy, over a course of a year, when you look at it, it's less than $50 a month if you're a full paying member. And it's hard to believe between tech support, a few social activities, and a few rides that you haven't way more than paid for it. But it probably feels like a bit of a chunk at first. But if they stop and think about their true needs over the year, it's really not an expensive outlay.
Right.
And for the folks for whom $500 is a significant outlay, that discounted membership fee is now what, 47-ish% of the members of the membership. So
try not to be a barrier, I think, is what we've always said, is that we want all the members that need us. We want to be available, and there's a significantly good scholarship, or I forget what the words are, and I think, Mary Ellis, there's a handout that I think that we can actually give people that shows the scale. Is that right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the fee structure, I don't even have it memorized.
Yeah.
So no one's expected to be able to spit that out. So we'll have a little handout that has the breakdown of the different tiers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And do they have to pay it all at once, Wendy? Can they pay?
We encourage it, but it's not required. I mean, we certainly can put people on a payment plan. We
Or
have one
twice a
min
year or something if absolutely
yeah,
necessary. But
twice a year, four
yeah,
times a year. We try not to get into the system where we have to track people down,
yeah, yeah,
because that costs money, costs our time and attention to do that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we certainly can make, we always make whatever arrangements we need
yeah. I mean, I
to
think
get people
that's our
on.
message. We want to try to work it out for anyone that would benefit
Right.
from being a part of the organization. Yeah.
And I believe it's true that no one has ever been turned away who was interested in membership because they were challenged by that fee. So,
So that's an important message right there. Yeah.
Mhm. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I think just what we've all said, that this is fun. It's great to be in a position of doing this kind of outreach and talking about what we're all passionate about and sharing that passion with others. And you get to enjoy the fair. When you're doing the fair, you get to enjoy the fair, and you just meet so many people and so many families. It just opened up your eyes to what a phenomenal community we live in.
All right. Well, if no one else has anything to add, Mary Ellis, is there anything that we need to wrap up with, or are we good?
I think we covered it all. Just have fun. Have a good
Mhm.
time.
All
Good. And
right. So,
everything's at the fair. It's in boxes underneath the table.
oh yeah.
So when stuff on the top of the table you run out, don't think that that's all we've got. Just go digging underneath the table and you'll find more stuff. And if there's any challenge, if you're there at the fair and you have confusion or something, you can certainly call my cell phone or Mary Ellis. We're there to help.
And we'll be reminding you of these logistics in a separate message if you're already signed up to work at the fair. So. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. Appreciate all the good advice and tips and good conversation. And most importantly, thanks for serving as an ANV ambassador, no matter what your experience is, or you'll have a lot of opportunities just from your volunteer service to, feed that word of mouth chain, which is our number one way of recruiting both volunteers and members.
Thank you,
Hey,
Cindy.
everybody, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.